Hey class, in this video I'm going to do a lecture on some game design principles. Um, this is the first video for week 2, so you can see what we're going to cover in week 2 here on the schedule. And this is where you can find a link to the lecture uh, here. And I'll put a link to this in the video as well. So in this video I just want to introduce some of the basic sort of terms and concepts that we use in game design, in video game design specifically. So you don't need to follow along with this. We're not going to be demoing anything, but these are important sort of terms to be familiar with as we talk about creating games throughout the semester. A couple of these things we already talked about in our first lecture, so we're going to review them and kind of elaborate on them and give some more examples. So let's get started. So interaction is kind of the overarching principle of game design. We need to be thinking about interactivity all the time when we're working on a game. Interactivity is the principal element that defines games as a medium. So if you can't interact with it, it's not really a game. There might be some edge cases, but in general, that's kind of how we think about games. And interaction is created through a input-output system between players, or in the case of video games, players and a system. And it cycles between input that we give into the system and an output that we get back from the system. So that system should encourage exploration and understanding of the interface. The interface is how we interact with the system. So that's usually hardware. So buttons and stuff like that. We'll look at some of our input options. A system of interaction should encourage discovery and exploration within the game world. So when we're moving, when we're changing things in the game world, we should be getting feedback that encourages us to keep going. And finally, our system should allow the user to master the tools of the game. Let me make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Most games, not all games, but most games involve what we call a difficulty curve. And you should progress as you get better at the input side of things. You get, feedback from the output, and that should help you get better at doing the input, whether that's making better choices or, doing faster button combos, whatever that happens to be. So let's look at some examples of input. This is from the Commodore. So this is probably 50 years old or 40 years old at this point. So you can see it looks pretty similar to what we use today. We've got some knobs or potentiometers. We've got some buttons. Here we have another example of a Atari controller for Pong. So it just has two potentiometers or knobs to control our Pong paddles. Then we have another interface for a Lasonic TV game. So we see some more knobs and switches. And then as we keep going, we have another interface where we see joysticks and buttons. So we have a little bit more control with a joystick with two axes rather than a knob that's just one. Okay, then we have a keyboard. So we can, have lots of buttons and we can type in words and numbers. See more advanced keyboard. See, crazy mouse and more regular mouse. And then we get into some more niche input systems, the 3D sensing Kinect camera for the Xbox, old school light sensor for Duck Hunt, the Dance Dance Revolution interface where we have buttons on the floor that we can jump on with our feet. So there's lots more, but these are all just some examples of different ways that we can input into the system. So these are examples of input. These are physical hardware that take, information from the physical world, like us pressing a button or moving a knob or joystick or jumping on a button, and that gives feedback into the input into the system. So then the system interprets that input and then gives us new output based on what's changed. So a lot of that in video games is video output. So here's Pong. There's, colors on the screen that create shapes and tell us information about the game world. There's sound. It's a very important component of game feedback. And then there's haptic feedback. So the rumble pack we see here that can actually, create physical vibrations that we can feel in the controller. So game feedback communicates information to the player about the state of the game. A lot of game design is just managing states, like how many points does the player have, how many lives do they have, how many levels are there, how many enemies are there on a level. All of these different things are states. So state is kind of like a more general term that we use a lot in game design that refers to the state of something. So that kind of implies that there's a current state and there may be a different state in the future. So as we progress through a game, various different states, like your points, how far you've made it through the level, those change, and our video game system keeps track of those things for us. Another term that can be counterintuitive at first is the idea of positive feedback. So when we give feedback to the player, we give them different types of feedback, but all of the feedback should be positive. Positive in this case does not necessarily mean it's going to make the player happy or it says you're doing a good job. Positive in this case means that it's useful. It is helpful for the player to improve. And so that's why I have this little game over screen here. This is an example of positive feedback, even though we don't want to lose the game. So in a sense, it's negative. In a general sense, it's negative because you just lost the game or the level. But in a more practical sense, it's positive because hopefully you should have learned from the game system why you got to that game over, and that will help you improve on your next playthrough. So positive feedback is a way that we tell the player how the game works. So positive feedback should be easy to understand. So game over is very easy to understand. You lost the game. And it should motivate the player to get better at the game, to keep practicing, learn the game system more, or get better at the game system so that next time we play, we get farther before we get the game over. So confusing or discouraging feedback is not positive. So if you get a game over and you don't really know why, that's not positive feedback. It doesn't help you improve. If it's discouraging, if you feel like, oh, I know why I lost the game, but I don't have any idea how to overcome that obstacle, then that's not positive feedback because we don't really want to keep playing the game. Okay, so game mechanics. You probably hear this term a lot. It's sort of like applied generally in a lot of different cases, but let's talk about what it really means when we're talking about game design. So game mechanics are a system of rules that governs the way a user interacts with the game. So it's basically what can we do in the game. And in video games, we build up different game mechanics to create a complex game world. So the interface allows the user to make actions. So if I hit the keyboard forward, I should move forward. If I hit the spacebar, I should jump. Those are input that result in actions. And the game records those actions and then gives us feedback based on that input and the environment of the game. And so we get that feedback in changing game states, and then we interpret that and we adjust our approach. So basically, mechanics are what can we do? Can we move? Can we jump? If I run into a wall, will I stop? If I fall over off a platform, will I die? Will I get a game over? All of these are examples of mechanics, things that can happen. Game dynamics is kind of related, but it's slightly different. So game dynamics are the product of how the mechanics fit together and then determine the experience of the game over time. So in a game with good dynamics, the rules of the game are easy to learn. Not necessarily to master, but to learn. If you hit space, you jump. If you move to the right, you reveal more of the screen or whatever it happens to be. Players should improve through gameplay. So if you play the game for an hour and you don't learn anything, you don't get any better, you're probably not going to want to keep playing that game. The game should give immediate and sufficient feedback. So if you fall off a platform, if you run into an enemy, if you collect a coin, all of these things should be immediate and sufficient. So we should learn everything we need to know about what's changed about the game state from the feedback system. And the game should allow recovery from mistakes. So most games you play more than one time, you take more than one chance to get through a level. So a big part of game design is learning from mistakes and then allowing us to replay the level and have the player be motivated to actually get to the end of the level. So of course Mario has to show up in a basic lecture about game design. We can see everything that we're talking about just in the first couple screens of Mario. And we'll come back to Mario, and more examples throughout the semester. But let's just take a look at the Mario starting scene. And we learn a lot about what we need to know. So as you know, if you played Mario, you can't go to the left, you have to go to the right. So we learn immediately that the goal is to go to the right. We don't know exactly what we're going to get when we get there, but we know that it's going to the right. We also see these question mark boxes. Okay, so those are, those signify to us that we don't know what is in there, but it's something that we want to find out, right? We want to know the answer to the question, and we get rewards from those questions. We also have obstacles in the form of our Goomba enemies. We can see that they're pretty upset because they have the narrowed eyebrows, so that tells us, this is somebody we don't want to encounter. And they're coming towards us. So that reinforces the idea that we want to go that way, they're going this way. So we learn a lot from here. We can also see that, there's these platforms that are higher than we are on the ground. So that kind of tells us that you can jump in the game. So it gives us a lot of information about how the game world works, what those mechanics are, and then what we want to do, where we want to go. So right in that screenshot, we see all of our three main sort of game mechanics, goals, obstacles, and rewards. And then we eventually get to the goal over here, which is visually very clear. It's this little flag, there's a little castle. We've made it to the end of the level, and we see our goal. So most games have established goals. Sometimes they're very specific, like in Mario saving a princess. They can be vague, like exploring an abandoned island in a game like Myst, but they should be clear. So, they don't, even if they're not hyper specific, like save the princess, they should still be clear. Exploration is a clear goal, even if you don't know what you're going to find at the end of it. We use obstacles and rewards to lead the player toward the goal and provide challenges that makes it fun to play the game and rewarding to arrive at the goal. Sometimes these lines can be blurred a little bit. A goal and a reward may be kind of, intermingled. An obstacle and a reward may also be intermingled in some cases. And in a complex game, as we build more mechanics into our game, we'll have a variety of different obstacles, different rewards, and sometimes multiple goals that can be happening at the same time or in a sequence. And that's how we create a complex game world with multiple outcomes. So let's talk about goals first. Goals are objectives for the player, so we kind of know what we're progressing towards. You might have one main goal and several side goals. The goals may be more or less explicit, as we discussed. And goals can kind of like take place over a series of events. The term final boss is often, is a term that you're probably familiar with from games. That's sort of the ultimate goal. And side goals, can be related or unrelated to the main goal of the game. So obstacles are the challenges or puzzles or enemies or anything else that prevents us from getting to the goal. Okay, so challenges should lead us towards the goal. So even though they're preventing us from getting to the goal, they're also kind of leading us towards that goal. So if your final goal is beating the final boss, the previous bosses and the previous enemies are kind of all leading up to that final boss, teaching us things about how to approach it. So these obstacles are often related to game genre. We'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of weeks, how genre kind of influences what we put into the game. So for example, in a puzzle game, you're going to have like math or logic-based puzzles. In an arcade game, you'll have like barriers, platforms, enemies, things like that. Sometimes it's more abstract, like in an exploration game like Myst, which I mentioned, which we'll talk about in another lecture. The obstacle is really just exploration. Like, can you find things? There are puzzles in Myst, but there's also just sort of this general like keeping track of where things are and kind of looking for things and understanding, piecing together different clues to create a full story. Rewards are things that we get for playing the game well, or can lead us towards specific parts of the game. So obvious example is like coins. Coins are something that we collect. We can often use them to get something, some type of achievement or some type of power up or something like that. But they also just kind of visually lead us through the game. So if you're collecting a bunch of coins, that usually tells you you're doing the right thing. So rewards can take multiple forms: currency like coins, objects like power-ups or weapons or spells. Sometimes just visual rewards like a cool outfit. Things like that are given to the player for completing challenges and defeating obstacles, progressing through the game, and then often can help us with the upcoming challenges. So rewards also tell the player, just like obstacles do, but in a different way, that we're moving through the game correctly, we're progressing towards the goal. And they usually have some effect on gameplay. Sometimes they're purely aesthetic, but most of the time, they give us some upgrade, some special power. So that's it. Those are sort of the main, concepts that I wanted to cover. The three main game mechanics, which are obstacles, rewards, and goals. And then a few basic terms like input, output, feedback, positive feedback, game mechanics, game dynamics. So this lecture is very technical, but these are a lot of terms that help us talk about games in a way that is, a little bit more fluent. We can talk about the overall picture of a game without having to get into the specifics to, kind of talk about what we mean or what the concept behind our game is. So there's few resources here. Sometimes I'll have some links to resources to get it more in depth. So these aren't required readings, but if you want to learn more about the resources that I looked at when I was creating these notes, you can see some examples here. All right, so that's it for this lecture. And I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll continue with a couple demos for this week.